Today's Wednesday, March 18th, 4:30. This is a meeting of the Water Quality Management Committee. The agenda's been distributed around. First two items I'm hoping we get through relatively quickly. I think they're a little bit pro forma, but we'll see where we get to. The first one is that we want to have a discussion and a vote to establish the committee's policy on public comment. The proposal is to only allow public comment from citizens in attendance at the meeting, but correspondence received would be included with the minutes, but not read into the record. And we reviewed this recently with town council, who said that that was an appropriate way to set the rules. So, discussion from anybody on the board.
I think one point that probably we should clarify is Select Board has a precedent where they allow public comment on non-agenda items at the start of a meeting. There's no discussion amongst the committee, but they do allow that. So I think that's a first question. Do we want to allow public comment on a non-agenda item? And then the second one would be just the agenda item comment policy. So my personal feeling is discussion of non-agenda items is just not productive use of time. If people want to have something on the agenda, you have always been open to contact you, and we'll put it on an agenda, but beyond that, I'd say it's outside the scope.
Okay.
My feeling.
Good. Thanks. John?
I'm set.
I'm set.
I'm good.
Okay. I'm making a note here that maybe we bring it back up as a separate item, whether or not we should have a comment period at the beginning.
Okay.
Like the selectmen, okay? Okay. All those in favor of the...
Is there a public comment on that?
I'm sorry. Sorry. Go ahead.
Matt Hanley at 710 Thomas Landers Road. I'm very alarmed by this item. You know, I attend a lot of meetings, not just this meeting. I go to Board of Health meetings, I go to ZBA meetings, Select Board meetings, not only here in Falmouth, but in other parts of Cape Cod. And public comment is very important. And so not everyone has the ability to come to these meetings. So some people have disabilities. There might be inclement weather. They might not be able to drive in the dark in the winter seasons. They don't feel comfortable attending public meetings, but they have something to contribute as a member of the public. So when they send a letter in, it's so they can speak in a public forum about their concerns. You know, this is what makes United States and, you know, democracy great, is that people get to voice their concerns. So I hope this board will shut down this, because otherwise it's going to become a favoritism. Because say one of the board members here is away on a family vacation, but they want to make a statement, or say, you know, Amy Lowell or Eric Turkington wants to make a statement. Are we going to ignore their statements too? We're not going to read theirs? They have something to contribute. Or say a specialist from any of the laboratories in Woods Hole has piece of information that they want to contribute that could change the decision of the board, but also then the board can say, hey, this piece of information is very crucial. It was read in front of the public, so then the public understands the board's view and their full scope of the information that they're reviewing. Mr. Rafferty, Chairman Rafferty, I realize that you spoke to this with town council, and town council said it was appropriate, but this board is an advisory committee to the select board, and the select board counts on this committee to take public comment and to hold this forum in a open meeting law to present the information, record the information, and then transfer the information to the Board of Selectmen so they can make an educated decision. They want to know, you know, what was said and what was presented at these meetings. So, I don't feel that this board is appropriate to move forward on a vote without first addressing the select board, because this committee is advisory committee to the select board. You're welcome to do what you want and vote whichever way you feel is best. Thank you.
Thank you. Yola?
Hilda Menge, Green Center, Precinct 8. I would like to know, how many letters do you get weekly or monthly?
Few.
If it's just a few, why make it so difficult? Why not read them if it's only a few? If you got 100 or even 50 a week, I could say that's taking too much time. But if it's only a few, I would recommend that you give the public the chance to hear them, because hardly anybody reads your minutes. It's just a reality. And the other one is the proposal about speaking beforehand for 2 minutes on a non-agenda item is extremely helpful at the select board meeting. And I don't think you have crowds here sitting waiting to do that. I don't think you have to be worried. Now, if you get crowds because everybody wants to get the chance to speak for 2 minutes, you can decide later on, maybe we should change this policy because it's not working, it's taking half of our time, which is totally understandable. But I don't think that has happened for the select board, and I would highly recommend it to give the public that chance. Because for us here in the public, we sometimes come up with an idea that we think is important to say, but we can't wait for another few weeks to get on the agenda item and then make it something really formal. So I would hope that you reconsider that. Thank you.
Ken, you were a couple minutes off the start time, but
I know, I
the
apologize.
first item,
I see that.
I didn't know if you had any
Do I have any opinions?
opinion or...
I'm going to reserve any opinions for now, because I did come in late, yeah.
Okay. Are there any more public comments? Okay. Don?
Did town council elaborate on the rationale behind her decision saying it was a bad idea?
No, I believe you were in attendance at the
Right.
meeting.
I do, but
We just said, is this an appropriate rule or regulation to?
it wasn't something she thought was a good idea. She just said it was
Was not-
appropriate.
was
Okay,
not.
I don't remember the details.
Yeah,
I'm
she
just
said-
trying to
she said
figure
it
out.
was-
Because,
It was not a prohibited action.
okay, I'm following up on Hilda's. My feeling is along that line. If it becomes a problem, then we might want to discuss
Okay.
putting some kind of limit on that. But to read a letter, or even a 2-page letter, doesn't take very long at all. And I don't think we've gotten many 2-page letters in the recent past.
Yeah.
My recollection of her precise words is, it is not something you should do. You should not take written comments and read them aloud in a meeting, and that she had some issues with another board that I would not name
Yeah.
in doing it. And I don't know of any board outside of one that has the policy of reading aloud letters that were submitted. And it gets into some committees get a lot of them, we don't get
Right.
many at all. But she was pretty strong, in my estimation, in saying, do not read letters that are submitted. Put them in the record, in your minutes, consider them if you wish, but do not read them aloud in the meeting. So we could
But was
touch
there a
base.
legal basis for that, or that was just her
He's the
opinion?
attorney. I would assume there was. but-
Just to help everybody, we had a training session run by the town council on the open meeting law and what you have to do or not do to be in compliance with the open meeting law, and this was an item that got raised, so just wanted to give you the framework by which this question came up.
Can I request we table this and have a little more discussion?
There's no motion.
Because I'm still confused.
There's no motion yet, so.
Right, I'm just going to suggest
Are you gonna make a
put a
motion?
stake in the heart of the motion that was starting to come
Make a
up.
motion to table it?
I will move that we table this topic, further discussion and more information, and maybe a direct comment from her, maybe just a written opinion from her that we don't have to read aloud in the meeting, but that we would take, is that?
I second that.
Okay.
We have a motion made and seconded. Is there any further discussion on the motion to table item 1? All those in favor of tabling item 1 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed signify by saying nay. The chairs of the ayes have it. Second item, we did this a year or so ago. Barnstable Clean Water Grant is sort of one of our companion organizations, and they've been pursuing grant money to do some marsh restoration. I circulated to everybody a copy of the letter that would go forth saying that this board is in favor of them restoring the marsh and getting some grant money.
I'll move that we endorse.
I'm going to go say, does anybody have any comments or concerns about us backing a program? Okay? And this goes to getting municipal vulnerability preparedness grants. Last year, they applied, we had supported it. They did not have all of their permits in place, and they got passed over. They have all their permits in place, and the indication is that they will get some money to restore the box, so.
Well, I'll move that we endorse the project.
Second.
Okay. Any comments from the public? All right, all those in favor of a letter of support and basically authorizing me to sign it, I guess. I'll take care of that. Good.
Yes, thank you.
All right. Third item on the agenda is a presentation. And if I've got this wrong, Ron, you can correct it. I did my best on the potential and benefit of an expanded aquaculture program.
Thanks, Steve. Ron Zweig, Precinct 1, and I think I'm an emeritus of this committee, having served on it for 10 years, so it's nice to be brought out of the mothballs for some reason. I'm happy to be here. To talk about this, I know you've had a lot of discussion about oysters, and I think Peter might be a little disappointed here because I think he thought I was going to bring up some recipes rather than anything else, but I'm going to be talking about something else. I have a recipe here I could talk about, but I think I'll go to the presentation if I can get it to open. Is there a trick to open? Oh, there it goes. All right, so, good. Anyway, I think that this talk really I think it was derived, Steve, from a letter I wrote to the enterprise. So the power of the press, I guess, is helping out here, and so I have to acknowledge that as well. That was a help, and so I'm going to be talking about, as the title is called, the potential of oyster aquaculture, particularly floating oyster aquaculture for estuary water quality improvement using an adaptive management strategy. And so I'll start here. I also want to acknowledge, though, that Tom has been doing a lot of work with the aquaculture program in town, both in terms of policy and moving ahead, as well as getting his feet in the water and working with keeping it going. Maybe others on the committee have helped with that as well. So the main point here is that from findings that have been done through a program that came out of the town through, I think, a town meeting vote in part, to do some research on oyster aquaculture in Bourne's Pond. And so the outcome of that, it's very, very promising and shows really a very, very effective and low-cost method for removing nitrogen from the estuaries. So an important study that was done, many of you may have seen this because it's a bit old now. I've only come across it lately, but it's SMAST, the School for Marine Science and Technology at UMass, Dartmouth did this study in conjunction with the town's Marine Environmental Services Department. And I think that it is probably the best study I have ever seen. And I've read a lot of things, but this one did a lot of things that I hadn't seen or done before. And the location of the site, this is, the map is at Bourne's Pond, but you can see it's at the very northern end. So it's like where the salinity is actually quite low. It's like 24 parts per thousand. And so it's quite a ways up. So it means that, and it worked. So things can work. But these are a couple images from the project site, which are basically standard. We see them around town now, at least in Eel River and other places. The so the site is here, and what they did, okay, I'll go through it, but the real novel things about this were that, and I'll get into it, were that they looked at the net nitrogen uptake into growth. I've never seen that before. It's 0.26 grams per oyster, but usually they just give the amount in the oyster, but they looked at the seed oysters, and they got that, and I'll show that in a minute. And another thing was they actually measured denitrification in association with the aquaculture. So it wasn't just nitrogen into growth, it was also microbial denitrification. In the bottom, oh, let me go back. How do you go back? What, an arrow? Okay, yeah, okay. So anyway, the aquaculture site is shown here, and at different points, at different stations in the estuary that are marked on the map on the left. And as you can see, that these are the different years from 2014 to 2018, and then 2019 is the year. The dark blue band is the chlorophyll and the nitrogen level and bioactive nitrogen levels across the points in the estuary. So as you can see, those levels are really knocked down a lot. You can see that dark blue bar is really much less than the others. And as you move away, it goes up a little bit. There's one point here where it's actually higher, but it could be an anomaly. But in any case, it's generally showing directly that that's going on. So, and this is another graph from that was derived from that work, and that gray area shows, in effect, the amount of chlorophyll that was knocked down by the array. See, they did a lot of very detailed study. And the chlorophyll kind of represents the phytoplankton level, and the phytoplankton level represents the amount of nitrogen that is taken up and the amount that is then removed by the oysters' filtering, feeding behavior. And they obviously, in this, the oysters run 24/7. They don't shut down. They keep filtering all the time. They're out there doing it. And apparently, like a 3-inch oyster can filter around 50 gallons of water a day. So that is important. Now here, this graph on the left here shows basically the same thing, but the colors are reversed. It just shows this, an average for those years, 2014 to 2018 years, of nitrogen, chlorophyll, and the bioactive nitrogen. And as you can see, that the orange peaks, or the orange bars, are much lower. So it's showing basically that there's a significant impact. But also, so that's really showing effectiveness. The other graph on the right is also quite interesting, and it's surprising to me, actually, because the phytoplankton blooms happen like after the first week in July, and in the estuary. I would have thought it would have been sooner, but it's earlier, which means that probably all winter it's very low. Okay, so basically eutrophication levels are very low in the estuary, except in the summer. And all the MEP, the Massachusetts Estuary Project studies, all state that the problem with with nitrogen, and the problem with phytoplankton blooms and eutrophication is in the summer. And that's, of course, when the oysters rev up and do their job. So it's like in the winter, it's not so much a problem, but in the summer it is, and that matches well with the feeding behavior and the growth of the oysters. Now, for the denitrification side of things, they did that study as well. It's parallel, and it shows this is sort of the oyster array on the left, and that reddish, brownish, yellow, blue area is where the sediments from the oyster feeding settled, and it's in that area that they did all these measurements very thoroughly to look at the impact of the the additional denitrification in association with growth. So nitrogen was not just going into growth, but also being volatilized or basically released through denitrification processes, reducing nitrate to nitrogen gas that then goes into the atmosphere. This is from Tom's presentation that he gave, in February, about a couple years ago, but it basically shows the results from a study that, or a pilot program that the town conducted in Eel River, and it showed. This just shows there were 3 half-acre plots, and from the 1.5 acre total, these were the yields of oysters each year as the program was revving up. And so we got like about 1 million oysters harvested per acre, roughly. So that's there. And this is really through a public-private partnership, because the town works closely with the growers, and it's basically in managing it in a sense. And so the growers are very much a part of the program, and they pay for their participation as well, and the town supports it. Now, going back to the Bourne's Pond, the results of the research, you can see here that it starts that the oyster yield is like 29,610 oysters, okay, with an 82% survival. The net nitrogen uptake was 7.86. That's the net, okay. The seed oysters were 1.35 kilograms of nitrogen in total that went in. So the net was 7.86. And then the average for oyster was 0.266 grams of nitrogen. And then on top of that, they did the study and showed that there was 2.87 kilograms of nitrogen denitrified, which is an additional 36% over what went into growth. And so the nitrogen per oyster was then 0.097 grams of nitrogen. So the total was basically 0.363 grams of nitrogen removed per oyster. Okay, 0.363. So therefore, if we're getting like about 1 million oysters per acre, that ends up being 363 kilograms per acre. That's a lot. Again, we'll see how significant that is in just a moment. But so it is something. Now, after they got these results, the SMAS team recommended that the level of denitrification be considered 25%, not 36%, to be a little bit more conservative, and so that came down to 333 kilograms of nitrogen removed per acre for the growing season. Now, what that equals, that's about since the nitrogen removed for household, numbers are numbers, but that I could find is best, was 4.76 kilograms of nitrogen. Now, that isn't the total that's discharged from the average house in town. It's the amount that makes it to the estuary. So there's attenuation or denitrification, we could use that word as well, but attenuation as the septic effluent migrates toward the estuary, and what enters is part of it. It's 7.6. So 1 acre of oysters thereby can manage the nitrogen discharge from 70 houses. Okay, 70 houses is a lot of houses. Okay, so that's, and whatever the cost, what, Amy, oh, well, I'll ask you later, but I still don't have a clear idea of what the cost is per house for sewer. And I guess we could use the phase 1 from Great Pond better. So anyway, now the cost to produce the 1 acre of oysters, or the town, it costs the growers $40,000 if they take all of the benefits the town offers. So they pay the town $40,000 per acre, and the town provides a lot of things, a lot of materials, different support, many different things for that. And so that is a factor. So the 40,000, but what's important there is that that's what the cost is, or that's what if that's the cost, that's what the growers pay. So there's no cost really, because they pay for, it costs the town, let's say $40,000 to set it up, more or less, the first year. And then a lot of the equipment, everything lasts several years, so it goes on. So it's basically a moneymaker for the town. But what that means, what they use that for, what the department uses that for, is for buying quahog seed, other seeds, providing cages, equipment, floating bags, equipment, cages, different things, storage facilities, several things. But there is a surplus beyond the other. So if we look at Bourne's Pond, I'm going to be using two examples for Bourne's Pond because the study was done there. The MEP, the Massachusetts Estuaries Project, nitrogen reduction goal is 4,000 kilograms per year, not from preventing it from going in. The inlet widening would reduce the nitrogen by about 2,000, about half. And to continue that, the consultants came up with a design for a 90-foot a new bridge over the inlet, widening the inlet. It would cost about $11 million. So if we did 6 acres of oysters, we'd get the same result, the same amount of nitrogen removed, 6 acres, at a cost of about $240,000 for the same effect of that increase from the other. So the numbers add up. I mean, it just works. This is the way it works. But if you did 12 acres of oysters in Bourne's Pond is 152 acres, so it'd be 12 acres of the 152. You'd remove the total 4,000 at a cost of $480,000. So it's this is what the SMAS results have led to. So now there was a question about, there's been a lot of talk about the Saxon Partners development and the additional 346 kilograms of nitrogen that it may be contributing, as Chris Neal suggested, new nitrogen that would be coming into the Great Pond watershed. And so basically with about 1 acre of floating aquaculture, oyster aquaculture, you'd end up with removing, 1.04 acres, okay, but the 346 kilograms at a cost of about $40,000. So, but that cost, again, is an upfront cost that is then repaid by the growers, and that goes on every year. That's not just a one-year thing. Every year that they produce, it goes on. So it's really something that can help with that. Now, currently the town's plan, the department, Chuck Martinson, has led an analysis of all the estuaries in town for aquaculture. And it's a preliminary estimate now. They're still working through it. They've done around, it's like 4 or 5 years old now, what they did, 2012, 20 to 2022. And so they came up with about 13 acres. Now, this amount of acreage in Great Pond, as the plan is now, which is what he's come up with as suitable areas, would take up about 34% of the nitrogen that needs to be removed from the 12,154 that was indicated in the targeted watershed management plan for Great Pond. So it's basically, it's that. Now, if we look at that then, and think about the, and it's kind of an alternate plan for Great Pond. We have two sewer, we've got, the Little Pond sewer system, which is, been given credit for removing 1,000 kilograms of nitrogen per year from the estuary. And then the phase one, the Great Pond Phase 1 sewer program would take out 3,900 kilograms, roughly. And then fertilizer control, there's a credit of 425 kilograms. So the total for those parts are 5,328 kilograms. Now, the floating oyster culture program in the areas already designated is 4,095 kilograms. Okay, by the town, at 12.5. So using, the research findings. So now if we started looking at the rotational, at the quahog seeding area, John, you remember the rotational concept of doing aquaculture, floating aquaculture over half of the area, and then moving the bags to the other half, and you seed oysters underneath because seed quahogs underneath because they take 2 years to grow instead of just 1 year. So so therefore you could do something that the town does now. It does quahog seeding. I don't have a number for nitrogen removal because that has still to be researched. But without the quahog uptake, the rotational system under over 8.2 acres, which is actually half of, by chance, it turns out to be half of what the town has identified as good areas. It comes out to 2,731 kilograms of nitrogen would be removed just in oyster growth without quahog growth underneath. And these areas are already closed off by the town whenever they seed quahogs for a year, or a year, maybe longer, maybe 2 years. And then people can come in and collect the little necks or the 2.5 inch quahogs. So the total nitrogen removal through this approach would be the target, the goal. And so as it says here, that there was 16.4 acres designated for quahog production. If half of that's used for oysters, that would be doable. So it's the aquaculture is proving to be a very powerful tool, extremely powerful, and at no cost, practically. No, actually, it's a moneymaker, but it could be. We could talk about that a little bit. I'll do that in a minute. So oyster aquaculture with quahogs together with the planned Little Pond and Great Pond Phase 1 sewer areas can meet the TMDL for Great Pond. So that's sort of the summary finding. Now, thinking about what to do now, okay, now that we've got this kind of information, there's several things that can be done. And the first one, the whole thing is that this is an progressive adaptive management approach. You put in the systems, and then you test, you monitor, and you see how they do, and then you keep adding over time, because you're not going to put all this stuff in 1 year. It's going to be could be progressively done, and then it can and be monitored, and then we can see what the actual impact will be, and it can be done quickly. pretty quickly. It just depends on the phasing. Chuck has a program set up. And then the idea would be to use the SMAS finding of 333 kilograms of nitrogen per acre for the floating aquaculture. And maybe the cohog's knowledge will come up and the methodologies will come up as well. And then we can even consider aquaculture as it is effective even in the northernmost part of Bourne's Pond. That's like the worst salinity area. It's still effective, and they like it. Actually, oysters prefer brackish water, so that it's better. And then the important thing next would test the rotational strategy. See how it really can work with the cohogs on the bottom and the floating bags above them. That's something that I think that is sort of in the plans and the offing, but I think that would be important. And then they're also looking at bottom planting, more of that. That's another aspect. Scallops are an important thing. Now, the growers are private. Now, they may start growing scallops, or the town could guide them. Scallops are important because when there are microbial problems, like when there's closures of shellfishing, it doesn't affect scallops because you don't eat the gut. That's where the bacteria or the phytoplankton and bacteria end up. So you just eat the adductor muscle, and therefore it's not a problem as eating an oyster, the whole animal. So it's basically done that way. So that's something that actually growers in Buzzards Bay are doing now. Dale Levitt is one who's doing that. And then to do some market and risk management research. Tom had reported on, I think it was Matt, did you mention the grower who had some problem getting because of a salmonella outbreak or others at the end of last year. And that's a risk, that's a marketing element and also a risk management aspect. And in terms of looking at the risk management, we can look at that and see how often or how these things, and if there is a problem, there could be a couple things. One is the growers still grow the oysters, but the town compensates them and may just take the oysters out and dump them in the sound or somewhere where just to get rid of, because they can't be marketed, if they can't be marketed, or you find a way to keep them. There's lots of things. This is a progressive program. All the answers are not there. In fact, the town, Chuck and his crew have come up with far more innovative approaches than I ever thought of, in working on this program from the beginning, really. But if it is a risk management aspect, then if that is $40,000 per acre is the fee, including the $25 per acre cost for the license, and then the rest for the equipment. But some of it would be left over, and that may be put into a reserve fund. It's just an idea. It's something to talk about. And that could then compensate the growers for those years. And that could be an agreement that could be worked out, because it could be something that could be worked out. And then coming down to the objective or the indicator of all of this, as people say, it's the restoration of the eelgrass beds, right? I was talking with Chuck Martinson about this as well, and he said he doesn't understand why this is the objective, all right? Because before the inlets were open, they were fresh water, and there was no eelgrass. So the eelgrass came later, after the opening, when the brackish water could get in. So it's an interesting thing, but that is the bottom line now. It's not even meeting the TMDL, total maximum daily load of nitrogen. It's not really, should be indicative of good water quality that would allow the eelgrass beds to be restored. And so that's basically it. So anyway, I just want to say, yeah, so anyways, so thank you for the time. I'm not going to go any further because I have nothing more to say except I can answer some questions. And thanks a lot for the opportunity to bring this up.
You want to start on the right-hand end?
Well, we are providing some credit for oyster aquaculture, are we not, in the watershed management plan?
There's even credit for denitrification.
I thought that DEP didn't want to give.
Well, they don't want it, but it's there, and it's
I
It's
mean,
so all over the place that,
I'm skeptical on the D-night for the reason that I don't think it's scaled to the rate of biodeposition. So obviously, right, if they measure right under the oyster aquaculture cages, that's where all the biodeposits go. About half of what oysters graze, they poop out either as feces or pseudofeces.
Yep.
So there's higher rates of nitrogen input in particulates. So naturally, you're going to see higher rates of denitrification. So I think that, I'm not sure that's completely properly been dealt with. But certainly, the removal of oysters for, as a crop gets rid of nitrogen.
Well, I think that's a very good point. And I think I mentioned that earlier on, that actually it's in this slide. If you look at the top line, monitoring, and we need to check and see. And if we put cohogs underneath, they'll be gobbling up whatever, coming down. So
Yeah.
this is a progressive thing. There's not a certain thing. We have this data from this one point that was not basically selected due to some advantageous setting. It's actually looked like a disadvantage.
But others have been working on this. Edgecombe at
Right,
Louis
right.
worked on it. I had a student work on it at MBL. Everyone agrees the results, especially on the amount of removal, that's pretty clear cut, in terms of the uptake per oyster.
Per oyster, yeah. But anyway, I think you're right. I think that this is something that will have to go. This is the first time I've ever seen a study like this. I don't know if maybe you have something, Ken, that I have not seen, but all I know is that we have something here and that we need to build on it. That's the main thing. It isn't like that. It looks like
I guess my point is that I think it has been considered, and there is a plan to continue expansion of oyster aquaculture, and that's why Chuck did the survey. So I think you already won. You're victorious.
No, I know, but it's not.
Chuck is in the
But it's not in a
process right now.
planning tool. The planning tool now is to sewer phase 1, sewer phase 2, sewer.
I think because you can't quite get there just with oyster aquaculture.
No. Well, I know, but you already got 2 sewer programs for Great Pond. And you got the Little Pond part of it, and you got this part coming up, and maybe that's enough. That's the point. And if this is short,
That's my take.
yeah, there are other alternatives. Sorry, I'm becoming
Time out, I want
yeah,
to kind of go in order.
sure, no, go with Ed.
Ed?
Okay, bottom line, to my understanding of it, and Tom's been the expert and Ken on this for the years I've been involved, it's part of the planning. It's part of an active program with Chuck and Tom and the rest of the volunteers and the town employees that are part of the whole culture of the shellfish. So it is part of the plan. I think, it needs to continue. Perhaps it can be expanded as they find how effective it is, and where are the appropriate potential places to put it. And Tom's reported numbers over the years that are very impressive, but the scale to get it to where it can be a significant part of the TMDL goal is part of the problem, but it's an active part of the town's management plan, and to the extent of having a very active organization with Chuck and his folks and Tom and the other volunteers to make it go. So I think the effort should continue, and it will continue.
So, very good. But no one's mentioned this about the easterly development, the Saxon project. 1 acre, $40,000. And they want to, apparently they've agreed to contribute $750,000, I think. So it's like.
But you can't grow them in the Coonamessett River.
No, but you can grow them in the estuary. That's where the issue is. Anyway, so it's just looking at it. Yeah.
I just want to provide one sort of element of clarification.
Yeah.
You put up there that the Bourne Ridge project is now at $11 million, which I'm not disputing that is the current rattling estimate.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure. Go ahead.
That was last year's estimate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's nothing newer than that yet.
Right.
That project's got 2 or 3 elements to it. part of that project is work on Minot Beach as well as the bridge. The current bridge's footings have been scoured and undermined, and the bridge is going, whether or not we widen the inlet to get credit,
Yeah.
the bridge needs to be taken apart and rebuilt in a way that the footings will not get scoured out. So it's not just a one-for-one. There's a benefit if they build the bridge correctly next time in terms of some flushing action. But the bridge has got structural issues. And if you go out there and check on it or check in with engineering, they can update you a little bit more on, where they're at. So is it in danger of collapsing next week? No, but, dependent upon the right storm or event, yes.
Well, I connected with the Department of Transportation, the state's Department of Transportation, and they said that that bridge, their estimate was at a 50-year useful life, and that it would be, so that means there's another 10 years, maybe not. I'm sure they check it all the time. But the point is, though, that if the bridge is replaced, and let's say $11 million figure, if the same size is replaced, it might cost $6 million. And therefore, there'd be like a savings of $4 million if we could do the Oyster to not need that extra $2,000 for the widening.
The DPW has had consultants and engineers looking at this, and they've got reports and evaluations.
But have they looked at oysters?
In order to repair the bridge?
No, in trying to.
No, their exercises got less to do with nitrogen reduction and a lot more to do with stabilizing the bridge and Minot Beach. Okay?
I understand that, but if this is a shorter bridge, it's cheaper. That's the point.
Sure, a 1-foot wide bridge would be the cheapest.
No, I know, but I'm not saying, if it was the same size as it is now instead of making.
Like I said, they've had engineers and consultants looking at it. They've made a determination what needs to be done. I'm not going to say that it should be narrower or wider. I'm going to rely upon their engineering.
Well, I'm just saying, they based it on 1,995 kilograms of nitrogen. And if that can be, improvement, if that can be done with aquaculture, then you don't need to widen it. Okay?
You state that, but I believe that they've done the work to determine what they need to do to build a bridge that will be structurally sound.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah, the size still could be changed. Anyway, okay. Sorry, I'm getting. Sorry.
A couple things, Ron. Your numbers of removal per acre are really high.
They're not mine. They're from the SMAS study.
Those numbers came out of the SMAS study? Because I've got here in the town report that the Bournes Pond removal rates ranged from about 120 to 152, which was right in the town's target area, which is only 130 kilograms per acre of nitrogen.
Well, but as I pointed out,
yeah, I have to go back and look.
They looked at the net uptake and growth, 2.6, 2.7, and then they looked at the denitrification, which is about 0.1. So, or less, a little bit less. Right. But so they did those analyses. I'm not saying it's the end all. It's just that it's indicative.
Yeah, I've got a copy of that report, and I'll have to go back and look at it.
I sent it to you. The whole committee has it.
Yeah. So anyway, that's my big concern there, because when I ran the Eel River numbers for the first 3 years. The last year's numbers are not available yet. I'm trying to get them to present here. That was 117 kilograms per acre.
Well, I don't know how that was done or whatever. I'm just saying that that's something. But you had the same figure, about 2.6 grams, 0.26 grams per oyster in your table that you presented.
Yeah.
So that's about the same plus the denitrification.
Right.
So
like Ken, I'm skeptical of denitrification because the numbers are all over the place.
As I'm saying, it's a progressive thing. We
Yeah.
monitor, we see. I mean, it has to do with current,
Sure.
has to do with depth maybe to some extent. There are factors to look at. But from that finding, so as you progressively develop, you can see what's happening.
Yeah.
And we have a tool and a methodology now to evaluate that because SMAST has developed it.
Yeah.
And I presume I mean, the whole MEP, all the MEP reports are based on their work.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
and we're basing all of our planning on their work. So there is some history.
Good. All right, I'm done. John?
Yeah, so I guess all I want to add is, we've talked about this before here, we've had the map shown, and it seems like a great idea to offset high-cost nitrogen removal with low-cost nitrogen removal, but what needs to happen in terms of, permissions through the town or local homeowners to make this expansion happen? I don't have a good, clear understanding of how that happens.
Okay. I can actually, Tom could add to this as well, probably better than I can. But one thing that I just learned, because I spoke with Abigail Thrall at the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, and she said what's interesting is that their regional plan has now become a nationwide plan as of last Sunday. So it's under a nationwide plan, but there are other complications that need to be looked at. Then there's the Division of Marine Fisheries. They have their element about if there's one quahog per square yard or something.
Yep, that's the number.
I mean, that's something. But when we first started this program, whenever it was, 2009, 2010, we started the aquaculture, all that we got were no's. Can't be done. You can't do it. Can't do it in municipal waters. There's no way. You can't, no one, it's just not possible. And here it is. So any regulation that maybe seem to be there can be modified, especially if we are using, the areas he's already found that meet that criterion. And then if you've got the quahog areas that are already designated, or some of them, nothing is fixed yet. Chuck, it's very preliminary what his findings are, but there's a lot of potential. But you're right. I mean, there are town things. There are 4 different carrying capacities you got to consider. One is how much food's in the water, and then there's so that's one. And then there's an ecological one. What kind of an impact can it have on food? There's the space aspect to it. And then the fourth is the social impact aspect, which is what the neighbors think about it. And it's when we first did the first study in Little Pond, I went to all the community association meetings for 2 years before we did anything. Okay? And by the time we did it, all I was hearing was, what took you so long? And this is a social impact. And you've seen letters to the editor saying it's a great thing, Again, thanks to the enterprise. You can find, not too many, but some letters where they were praising. But at the same time, there was a grant in Pompanesett that was just trashed by the neighbors. Of course, it was Robert Kraft and his, it was, high-end kind of properties. But it was across the water. And it wasn't even floating, it was submerged. And still they complained. But there was no discussion. It's just sort of like, there's a process to do that.
So just one quick thing, Steve. You mentioned the Corps of Engineers regional policy or national policy had just changed?
Yes.
Is there a public announcement on that, or?
Yeah, there is. If you look it up, it's a little convoluted because I couldn't quite follow it all. I leave it to people like Chuck to go through, find his way through the weeds on that stuff because, But you said it all just changed.
Yep.
It's now the regional approach, although there is some kind of a regional something, but it had gone into a nationwide, a nationwide standard, I guess, is being applied.
Yep.
So
good. Thank you.
Yeah.
Just to get a clarification, my recollection is that having Chuck went and did the survey of all of the potential areas, identified certain sections.
I know the maps.
And now they are in the process of either preparing or have prepared, I think they're preparing, a MEPA document, because that is the next step that's required.
What they're, if I
Is that your
remember,
recollection, Amy? I thought he was preparing a MEPA thing.
you're right.
DEIR is what,
Yeah.
But-
So he's in the midst of the permitting process to then come back and
And if I
Start setting up
remember,
grants.
his idea is to try to get most everything permitted at once.
Yes.
And then roll out systematically embayment by embayment as
sections,
things
yeah.
develop.
Yeah.
Which I definitely think is a good idea.
Yeah.
So-
So, yeah, just one other point about this, too, is that this SMAS study, where was it done? In Falmouth.
Yep.
Okay. It isn't like something from Colorado, or they wouldn't have it there, but somewhere like Louisiana. It's done
those are a
here.
different type of oysters out in Colorado.
No, I know. In Louisiana,
Here's
yeah,
the results
Louisiana,
from
they have the
across
same. They have the same species in Louisiana all the
And
way to
there's the orange
Texas and
palm results.
whatever.
So
So,
I don't think there are almost 3 less.
Amy, you'd like to jump to the podium?
right.
I just wanted to make the point that that study is a good study, but it's not a new study and it's not new information to this group. It was included as an appendix to the 2022 Great Pond Targeted Watershed Management Plan. And I do think that the removal numbers that you've used are on the optimistic end of the spectrum of possibilities. So the town does, in that 2022 plan, the town did plan for aquaculture as a part of the nitrogen removal strategy, and used a range of potential removal that's lower than the range you were quoting, but it is definitely an important part, a part of the project. The plan also used a range for denitrification, though as removal through denitrification. But as a couple of you have pointed out, there's some concern that that factor may not be real, and the DEP, in fact, has been very skeptical of that as well. So the oyster program is, or the aquaculture program is moving forward, as you mentioned, through Chuck, and it is a big, terrific program, but it cannot necessarily do the scale of nitrogen removal that is proposed here.
Pardon me.
Yes.
You can come back. Yeah. If it's okay with Steve, I'd just like to ask a quick question, if I could. I just want to, what is the cost per house in the Phase 1 program? The total cost, I'm not worried about betterments or anything. What's the total cost to a house based on the bids you got in the Phase 1 program area?
So I haven't divided that out, but it is more expensive. It is substantially more expensive, but it's not an either or. It's not oysters. I disagree with your presumption that they could do the same thing.
I'm not asking that. I'm just asking, what is the cost
Yeah, and it
per
is
house?
substantially
Because
more.
Steve had said if you use the $53 million figure and divide it by 820, it's not right, because there's a
Right.
lot more in that 50. So, but I don't know what it is. Does anybody
Right.
know what the cost is per house after you take things out?
So,
Jonathan, you looked at this stuff a little while back. What did you
Well-
what did you come
Well,
up with?
Amy's already calculated the betterment part of it,
well, we haven't finalized the betterment.
but it's in the neighborhood of $23,000, $25,000 per house was the numbers that were being thrown out. Yeah, what the homeowner would pay in over 30-year.
And that's
0 percentage.
70%. That was 70%, whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, the selectmen will decide. But anyway, but the thing is, all I'm saying is that we have research results, and I think that in that TWMP, the denitrification levels are like double what SMAS found.
Right.
Okay? So it's like 50%. And they had 36%, and they suggested 25% to be on the safe side.
Okay.
Additional more.
It's part of the town's plan. We all agree it's a good idea. We just don't necessarily agree on the magnitude of the possibility.
Earl's had his hand up, so I'll give him a shot.
Earl Barnhart Green Center. What strikes me here is that to put in an acre of oysters costs nothing to the town. Nothing. No cost. You could put in 10 acres. If you found that you didn't get denitrification, you didn't get the 25% extra, big deal. Do another acre. Keep adding acres until you take out the required amount of pounds of nitrogen. You can do oysters instead of sewers. You can prove that. The first study he showed proved this removal rate of 300 and some kilograms per acre. You can try that again. You can question it, but it was proven in Bourne's Pond. To me, it's a no-brainer. If you can just keep adding acres at no cost to the town, profit to the growers, till you remove the right amount, you should do that. Forget the sewers. Do oysters.
Okay. Anybody else in the audience? You're next.
Hilda Menge, Green Center. I have a different kind of question. Sometimes people are concerned, I heard that also on the state, that what if the oysters, get a disease? What then? Are they going to function the way we want to? And my question is, if that happens, another comes up, and you can't sell them, as Ron said, you can throw them back in the ocean somewhere, could you also make compost out of it? I just don't know. Has anybody ever made compost from oysters that are not used for whatever reason? Because that would be then a benefit. Not as profitable maybe, but it would be a benefit environmentally and cost-wise. So I'm just curious. Does anybody know?
I know people have made driveways out of oyster shells, but I don't know if they've composted it.
But you could, right? You would,
I don't know. I'm not an expert.
It would be nice to figure that one out, because there's a lot of stuff in there that would be really high nitrogen and probably all the other minerals as well.
I think it's the calcium carbonate that's probably going to be the most important
really
component
good, too.
there. Yeah,
I mean, the combination would be, yeah, the combination would be fantastic for agriculture.
A new voice. Welcome to the discussion.
Thank you very much. My name is Lisa Maroney, and I am new to all of this. I would just ask that the committee, whenever they make these decisions, actually reach out and talk to the residents affected, because I don't think that there's recognition that people are not happy, particularly with the people like oyster farms when they're below water. When they get above water, they are causing safety issues and concerns and upset by residents. It's, we are a water community. It's not only residents, it's tourists, it's people who come to the beaches. And the folks who live along the water have safety concerns and recreational value concerns. These above water farms attract birds. We've had a new farm in our area, and already hundreds of birds are on it. Smells have resulted from that. These farms break loose. I know they're supposed to be anchored in a certain way. They break loose. High velocity zones, wind zones, not great places to have them. Boaters complain about these above water farms, especially at night. They're navigation hazards. They're being put in areas that are used for around mooring areas where there are sailboat races, where kids are learning how to sail, where kids are on ski-doos. They're taking up substantial portions of the harbor away from the people, and our tourists are sitting there looking at them as well. So I would really ask that you do involve the communities. If you don't see the residents, it's honestly because they don't know what's going on. I know this because it didn't take me, it took me several hours walking up and down a beach saying, are you aware of these farms? This is one, this is what they look like in Wacoit. Do you know them? Have you seen them? And they'll say, oh yeah, we think we've seen some like this. We don't like them. And I had over 100 signatures in a matter of hours of people who wanted to tell the town that they have real concerns. They don't like them. One of the other things that's happening is we have now basically shellfish processing plants going next door to my house, and they're in a residential area. It's not a business zone. It's on private dirt road, and there's a farm. It's now a new farm that's going to be processing shellfish. Do you know what that's going to smell like? What's even worse about it is that the business regulations aren't really applicable, as far as I can tell, to the residential area. So they do have to, they can't work late at night and so forth, but I'm really concerned that I'm going to have even more smells than I've had from the above water farm. People are complaining about this. It's not just our community, and this is a well-known problem. If you follow from Maine down south, people organize in opposition to this. Please consider us. I would also just say there are some very impressive scientists here. I am not one of them, but I have read that there's research that comes out of the University of Maryland, perhaps you know it, that deals with this rate of nitrogen clearing per oyster as being 50 gallons a day. From what I understand, that's a laboratory test under perfect conditions, and that's an in vitro situation, if that's what you call it. And in vivo, the oysters, each oyster really probably clears between 3 and 12.5 gallons a day, because they don't, they have to have the right food, which they don't necessarily have. They don't like to eat when it's too hot. They don't like to eat when it's too cold. If you think that we are going to have the billions of oysters it takes to clear Megansett Harbor of nitrogen, good luck. It's not happening. And furthermore, Megansett Harbor and maybe other harbors aren't even, above the Massachusetts level of permitted nitrogen, and yet we're finding these things taking over substantial portions of our usable water. And in terms of using just sewers, I understand we had what is it called, Little Pond, where the ambition was that these oyster farms would clear the water, and I understand the residents were, for the most part, very excited about it, but ultimately sewers had to be put in. I'm hearing, I think, that we're being asked to finance the commercial farmers, from a lot of whom, from what I understand, are not necessarily located here, and nor are the employees. $40,000 of our money to help commercial farms, if I'm understanding it correctly, I'd really like us to consider more seriously. So that would be my request, and I can tell you that I know residents from several communities that are being affected by these farms, several areas. You're welcome to reach out to us, but we are concerned and hope that you consider us.
So just
Thank
to
you.
address a couple of your concerns. First off, this board, at least twice a year, if not more, runs around a discussion on shellfish. Where is it going? Chuck comes in and talks about his project. He makes a presentation to the selectmen every year. I'm sure the process he's in does have some public element to it. This board, going forward, we're doing watershed planning, of which oysters are an element but not the end of it. And we expect to be getting relatively frequent updates, monthly, of 4 weeks, 6 weeks, so we know where things are at and how things are developing. So at the end of this meeting, I'm more than willing to take your email. I distribute the agenda all the time, and I probably send it off to 50 or 60 people who have varied interests, so I'll gladly add you to the list.
When I've spoken with Mr. Martinson, I was told that the town, the Marine Division of Environmental and Marine Services, does talk to the communities before they put in the above water farms. That did not happen in my community or others that I'm aware of. So just FYI, it's nice to have these meetings are great, and I know our town manager is doing so much more to get on the internet this information out, but I also know that I think people don't go looking for it, and it might be good to outreach because people are not happy.
Question for Tom. So,
Do you want to ask me, or I was just...
well, I was, first, two questions I thought you could elaborate on. One is, the placement of these things, they're careful not to put them in navigation.
They're out of the way, and the Army Corps of Engineers, as a fundamental rule, says you can't have more than 10% of a body of water surface with floating gear. But addressing the outsider thing, the Falmouth rules, and who's paying for it, the Falmouth rules very clearly state that you have to be a Falmouth resident, at least 18 years of age, to be one of these contracted growers in Falmouth. And each of the contracted growers right now is paying just under $20,000 a year rent to the town, because the town owns the gear that these people are using. And it's 7 cents per oyster that they grow. And it was set up that way intentionally so that small-time operators could get into it. We didn't want a corporate presence in town.
And I think that there are also private
Yes.
companies, and this is there's like two aspects of the oysters. There's the town sponsored, and then there's the non-town sponsored.
Right.
And those
That's
folks,
permitted, but not sponsored by the town.
those folks, I don't think all of them are from this area.
Yeah, I don't know about that part of it.
Any further comments? If not, I'm going to wrap up this portion of the agenda.
Thank you.
To get grants.
Chief, can I just make one comment?
Yeah, of course, John.
I think one of the things we need to keep in mind, we're certainly encouraging oyster farming, and we recognize that it's going to have a positive effect on water quality. But I think as we move forward with our sewer projects, we're very much counting on adaptive management. In other words, we put in phase one of Great Pond now. The next project is a number of years out. We will be able, before we start the next project, to have some data on the impact of the current projects. We're already looking at the impact of Little Pond and being able to see what that's done. So as we move in stages, we're going to be looking to see what the impact of the previous stages are. And that will dictate how we plan to approach the next step.
And Steve, could I add one thing quick? Amy probably knows more about this than the absolute numbers, but I think under our best aquaculture scenario, we're talking about oysters accounting for 5 to 7% of our TMDL reduction.
It was, yes, approximately.
Yeah, so it's in the single digits. It's not a big factor in the picture right now. I would love to see it be a big factor. The other thing to think about, using oysters, it's not a great analogy, but it's like putting a Band-Aid on someone that's being stabbed, because the oysters are dealing with the nitrogen after it's already created the problem. It's almost an ex post facto thing. I mean, it will remove the nitrogen, but it doesn't always solve the problem. And
It's not diverting the nitrogen from the estuary.
well, in the case of the Bourne's Pond thing, that was like a best-case scenario, because you're up at the very head of the estuary, and you could say, yeah, and they did show measured effects upstream and downstream of the thing. But the other setups, like the one in the Eel River, is so far down estuary as to really have no effect with what's happening in the rest of the estuary. So that's the drawback. As much as I'm an advocate of aquaculture, it is a problem, because you're trying to solve the problem after you've already created it. The ideal thing would be to have aquaculture in everybody's septic system, but we're not going to do that.
Okay. All right, moving on. Amy, you've got the next two. I don't care which order you do them in. If you want to do Great Ponds before you talk about Outfall, that's acceptable. Do you care?
Okay.
If you want to do Great Pond, just let me know so I can get a quick vote to revise the agenda.
Yeah, I'd like to do Great Pond first, I
Okay,
think.
can I get a quick vote to take item
So moved.
5 out of order?
Yes.
Okay, all in favor?
Fine with me.
Signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Hi, Amy Lowell, Wastewater Superintendent. I wanted to provide an update on the Great Pond Phase 1 sewer project. You may have gotten a text or an email just before this meeting, or maybe a couple, because if you're signed up for any of the town's notification systems, because we just sent out a couple of notifications about the startup of this project coming up. So I'm just starting with a summary of information that's been in the news, but I don't think that we've talked about it here, so I just wanted to summarize it here. As you all know, the town opened, as I believe you know, the town opened bids for the 2 Great Pond Phase 1 sewer contracts last December. We received bids from 7 contractors for each. So the project's divided into 2 contracts. Contract 1 is the construction of the sewer lift station on the Brick Hill Road site, and the force mains in the road from the lift station up to the plant, as well as installation of a new water main in Brick Hill Road from in a section of Brick Hill Road.
Amy,
Yes.
The force main work to come from the Little Pond Station and Alphonse Road
Yeah.
up to the new pump station site, is that under contract 1?
No, that's under contract 2.
It's under contract 2, okay.
Yep.
Yep.
So that first contract was awarded to CC Construction, who you're probably familiar with out of South Dennis. They've done a lot of work around here. Contract 2 covers construction of the collection system. That's the pipes and the laterals in the streets to collect the wastewater. And that was awarded to RJV Construction from Canton. They haven't done a lot of work around here, but they have done a lot of work like this and also got good references. The bids together were lower than had been projected, reducing the total project cost by about $7 million from the $60 million that we'd previously estimated to about $53 million. In addition, the state confirmed in February that the project was granted the 0% interest loan that we've been talking about, for the eligible portion of the loan. About $41 million of the project cost is eligible for that loan. Things that aren't eligible include the grinder pumps and grinder pump reimbursements. The town does still anticipate receiving the 25% loan forgiveness for that project. So it's got this.
Is that the Cape and Island Fund, 25%?
Yes, yes. Earlier this month, we sent a notification out to the property owners in this sewer service area that the project was about to start, and it also outlined the process for lateral stub locations. So the project design includes all the pipes in the streets, and then a lateral pipe, a smaller diameter pipe from that main in the street to the property line. And that design locates each of those laterals. The contractor's first step is going to be to go around and put green stakes on the ground at the property line where that lateral is proposed, and property owners are going to get a sign, a plastic sign that they can put elsewhere if they want a different lateral location. So these are details that matter a lot to the individual property owners. They don't necessarily matter to everybody else, but we have communicated with them about that process. The collection system design drawings are on the wastewater division website for the collection system part of this, so that if somebody wants to look at them with their plumber or their septic installer, they can do that. So as I mentioned at the beginning, construction is about to start, and the contractor RJV is starting first. They are going to be starting in Route 28 on the east side of the Sandwich Road intersection on Wednesday, April 1st. It's not an April Fool's joke. That's the first day that they're allowed to be in Route 28 under their Mass DOT permit, under our Mass DOT permit for this project. Installing sewers in this area in Route 28 will require closure of Route 28 between Sandwich Road and Mara Vista Ave Extension from April 1st until approximately May 22nd, which is before Memorial Day. There will be no through traffic allowed in that area, but Route 28 will remain open to local businesses and residents. There are a lot of businesses and residents in that corridor. So their local traffic will be able to get to where they need to get to, but you can't make it all the way through. We've been coordinating with the police department, the fire department, and the school department and others about this coming road closure. So this is a closure map. Yes?
But, I'm sorry, you're probably going to say this. This is the detour. Great.
Here's the detour, right. So here's the closure map. So this is on the town website. It's at the top of the town's website under that news flash. What I was just describing is at the town website. If you click further in it, you get to this figure, which is the detour map. And it's showing the red area is the initial closed section. So that's from the east side of the Sandwich Road intersection to Mara Vista Ave extension. So truck traffic coming from the east will have to detour there at Oxbow and go to Brick Kiln Road, Sandwich Road, because trucks can't make these turns on Mara Vista Ave and Mara Vista Ave extension. They can, however, we have started communicating with businesses in this section of 28 between Mara Vista Ave extension and Oxbow. We've begun communicating with those businesses about maintaining access and making it clear that trucks and residents who are trying to get into those businesses can still get in there. It's just through traffic we'll need to go around. Then there's also the local detour around Mara Vista Ave extension, Mara Vista Ave and Mara Vista Ave extension. So traffic coming from the west will be directed up towards Sandwich Road to Brick Hill Road and back down to Oxbow. Oxbow's a one-way road, so the cars coming out that way will have to take a right on Oxbow and then take a right or a left on 28 from there. So like I said, this is on the town's website and it has been sent out to people on the Notify Me list and to people who get the news flashes. It's been provided to the police department and coordinated with the police department, fire department, school bus coordinator. The week before, so next week we'll be sending this out using a rave alert to a much larger distribution list.
Is it a 24/7?
No. Thank you for asking. The work hours for this route work in Route 28 are 7 to 5, so it is not 24-hour. And they have to backfill and be out of the road by 5 o'clock.
7 p.m. to 5 a.m.?
They're doing that.
7 a.m. to 5 p.m.
That's the party animal.
And the reason, right, so you're asking how deep. The reason that we have to close this section of Route 28 is the sewer there it's gravity sewer that is 17 and a half feet deep in parts of it, and there are laterals that need to be constructed. So that's why the road needs to be closed.
I would say there may be a potential, since it's that deep, that Route 28 may not always be open at night, depending upon what they run into for construction issues. The goal is to backfill it and make it passable every day.
Wow.
But
That
that's
is
not an
certainly the
absolute
goal.
at that depth. You're going to have some big excavation out there.
Yep.
Are they going to run in, that's above the water table, or?
Probably there. I have not looked at that lately. There will be work in the water table further south, but I suspect they'll be out of the water table
They
there.
should be okay, because we left we left the stub before that you picked it up
Yes,
from.
it's on our drawings.
That was dry.
Okay.
that
Yep,
was dry.
That's where they're starting.
Yeah.
There's
They'll be going uphill from there. They won't be going down.
The soil borings are in the contract drawings, and they show the water, depth to water, on the depth to water that they found during the summer.
There was a nice article in the paper about the project,
Thank you.
but this diagram was not in it.
So I emailed this out to the newspaper today.
Okay, 'cause
We didn't have
It's
the,
information you can use.
right. We knew, we didn't have this information completed before last Friday. We needed to coordinate with the police and fire department, school bus department, make sure that the contractor had, anyway, there were a lot of boxes to check before we could send this out today. So I did send it to the newspaper, and if they're able, hopefully they will include this in the newspaper. Again, it's starting on April 1st. It's not, it's not next week, but it's a big enough deal that, yeah, it's coming up. So that's why we're getting out the notice. So that's the biggest news on the project. But the other couple of things that are going to be going on, they're doing some clearing and prepping on the Augusta parcel. That's the town-owned parcel between 28 and Brick Kiln Road. And it's beginning at the end of this week for pipeline installation that will go along the west side of the Augusta parcel. Those are pipes that have to get from the collection area up to the lift station at the north end of the parcel. And RJV will be setting up a staging area on the south end of the parcel. RJV, the collection system contractor, will be installing, actually they have a subcontractor called Apex that will be doing low-pressure sewer main installation on the T-Ticket Path Peninsula, also starting April 1st. And they'll be starting on Estrella and Seabrook Roads, which are sort of in the middle of the peninsula, not in Falmouth Port, but in the middle of the peninsula approximately. Once construction begins, 3-week look-ahead updates will be provided every Friday, meaning as the schedule progresses, we will have this information every Friday, and the planned work locations, meaning the roads, the locations where they'll actually be working, and the detours for the following 3 weeks will be published as we've done today. On the town's website under the news flash at the top of the site, and emailed and texted via the town's Notify Me app. I did send this to the police department as well. They may choose to put those on the police department Facebook page. That's up to them. Project construction is expected to be complete in the fall of 2027. Sewers will be available after construction's complete, so we're expecting the sewers to become available for connection starting at the end of 2027. Next steps.
Hey, one little item under the whole construction stuff.
Yes.
I just want to check off. When we did the little pond, a lot of times we only paved half the road at the end.
Yeah.
And I do believe this project made a decision that was kind of not the best choice back then, and that any street that gets dug up will get repaved.
Streets will be restored to the type of finish they have now. So there are a couple of dirt/gravel roads that are going to be dirt and gravel roads when we're done.
We're not going to paving half the road.
But a paved road will be paved.
Yeah.
So we're doing full width mill and overlay on any road in which we're putting a sewer on this project. Next step, so we're still working with the assessor's office to finalize the number of sewer equivalent units in the sewer service area for the purposes of the betterment. And once we have that information, we'll present that in a public meeting, and then it will go to the select board where they'll have a hearing. The town did send a petition to the state legislature to allow the town to use public funds for grinder pumps and for the grinder pump installation. Once that is passed, that will also be discussed at a public meeting, meaning the town's grinder pump policy for this project and potentially for future projects will be discussed. The next public information meeting will be held this spring. Meeting date, time, location will also be provided via that Notify Me app and via the town's website.
Spring's in a couple days.
I didn't say the first day of spring. I would like to have betterment information and grinder pump information before we have another public meeting. We are getting out information via letters, via the website, but I'd like to have some additional information before we have another public meeting. So that's it on that. Happy to answer any questions.
Start with you, Jonathan. Any concerns, comments?
No, everything else is great.
Okay, thanks.
No, it's just amazingly complicated. Something as simple as traffic on top of all the other engineering that has to go into this. I'm almost amazed, but we seem to be able to pull it off every project.
I'm set.
A portion of Sandwich Road got dug up for the water main. So we're not going to try to pave that road until later on.
So there's been a lot of coordination about this. There are two things that need to happen in Sandwich Road, and neither of them is going to happen when we're doing this detour. NewCo, the contractor for the gas company for National Grid, has been out there at the southern end of Sandwich Road. I am assured that they will be out of Sandwich Road by April 1st. So they still have work to do over on the side next to near the school administration building, or on that side of the property, but they're not going to be in the road. I'm assured they're not going to be in the road by the time our detour starts, so that we can have a two-way detour on Sandwich Road. The water department did install new water mains in Sandwich Road, and so it needs to be paved, both for the gas main work and for the water main work. The paving will be done after the road is reopened, after Route 28 is reopened for Memorial Day. Paving is a 1-2 day operation for this. I don't know, it's a short operation.
Some people might have had from earlier on the water main project that they were going to pave it this spring. That's getting pushed off.
They're paving it after Memorial Day. Yeah. And it's a quick operation, but the goal is to not have the two detours, not try to do two detours at once.
Yep, okay. Ed?
I do believe at the DPW garage, there is a big poster showing the area being sewered and where the mains are and stuff.
Yep.
Because there was a gentleman here before the meeting hoping to catch you, and he was asking about it, and I said, you can see it better than the small scale that was in the paper, and some people aren't adept doing it online on the website, but go to up there, and it's a nice big poster.
Right. And we have, Kyle Swanstrom and Chris Syriac both work at the DPW with me and are very familiar with the project, so people can talk with them as well.
Right, that's what I suggested he do, ask.
Thank you, that's good. Yep, all of this is on the website.
I think it's important to have that out in this public forum, that, hey, there is help if you're having trouble understanding what you're facing.
Right.
Go there. People are happy to help you. So
exactly. Right. All of this is on the website, but for people who have trouble with that, the posters, as you said, are at the DPW building at 416 Gifford Street, and there are people there that you can talk with about it.
Okay. Great.
You're up.
Oh, very impressive progress. It's a curiosity question. You broke it up into these two main contracts. Was that because of the capabilities of different contractors, or why?
Yes, it's bonding, so the project requires bonding, and you want people to be able to compete who have the right bonding capacity within their bonding capacity.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and the other thing I would say is, because of the scale of the sewer side of it, you would, if you bid it as one project, you get somebody who is a sewer person, and they would not, it would be a secondary thing to do the pump station, and you want somebody to be a primary on the pump station and be focused on their resources.
They still have to do some pretty significant sewering. The pump station guys have to still do the main, so that seems...
Yes, so CC Construction is actually more of a linear contractor. They have that contract with the lift station, but they're subbing the lift station to a company called MECO, which does lift station work.
Okay. Any comments from the audience?
That's interesting.
Wildemenge Green Center. Where are all the contractors located? Are they all Falmouth contractors? Probably not. Where are they located?
What difference does it make?
I said in the presentation, but CC Construction is from further out on the Cape.
They're in Dennis, and they also have a facility. They also have a yard facility in Plymouth.
Right, and RJV is from Canton.
Okay, because my concern always is that with these big projects, most of the money goes out of the town, leaves the town. And that's a big concern to me for many big projects.
Yeah, I'll just say, I know many of the people that work for CC Construction, and quite a few of them are from Falmouth. And so, you know, the labor costs and everything are going, the truck driver, the backhoe operator, a couple of the laborers are Falmouth residents. And, you know, when they don't have a job in Falmouth, they're getting on a boat and going out to the vineyard and working on the vineyard.
The more local, the better, of course, because it's a lot of money that's leaving the town otherwise.
Okay. Any other comments? If not, Amy, you're now item 5, discussion on outfalls. Get ready, Ed. You're next.
Time's marching.
When you on the agenda first, next meeting.
Outfall update and anti-degradation evaluation overview. So you've seen this before. I like to summarize it when we're talking about the outfall for anybody who may be watching it at home who's not familiar with the town's outfall. The town is proposing an outfall which will discharge tertiary treated wastewater with ultraviolet disinfection. The discharge location is at the star on this map. It's about 2,300 feet offshore south of Falmouth Heights, in Nantucket Sound. It's beyond the 20-foot water depth contour, so beyond the eelgrass, beyond where eelgrass grows. It will have diffusers at the end to disperse the discharge and help with mixing at that location. The location of the proposed discharge, there's a very high tidal velocity there, so you do get really excellent mixing right there at that location. When the outfall is available, the town will cease regular discharge to the ground at the main wastewater treatment facility and expand our sewer areas to meet the TMDLs, meaning to improve water quality in the coastal ponds. So as you're aware, the town submitted the environmental notification form, or E&F, to the Massachusetts Environmental Policy Act office last September. And there was a 6-7 week public review period. I guess that's a 5-6 week public review period, public and regulatory review period of that environmental notification form, at the end of which the Secretary of the EOEA, Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs, issued a certificate on the project, scoping out the environmental impact report that is now being prepared for the project. So that certificate scoped out, based in part on comments from the regulators and from other commenters, and in part on the expertise of the various people involved, scoped out what ought to be addressed in the environmental impact report. Funds were appropriated at the November 2025 town meeting to prepare the outfall conceptual design, that first step of the design, the environmental impact review, and to continue with the initial permitting. So we're well underway with the evaluations that are required for that environmental impact report, including water quality, and I'll talk a little bit more about anti-degradation, the benthic data that was collected over 2024 and 2025 for this project, interbasin transfer, which I'll talk a little bit more about as well, and we have a consultant through SMAST. We have SMAS doing additional modeling of the discharge for the purposes of shellfish classification. The conceptual design is in preparation, and we are preparing, this still says April. We are planning actually at this point a May 15th EIR submission. So I will correct that before we post this. The anti-degradation evaluation. There's a lot to it, and I'm just going to summarize it here in a few slides. It will be included in the environmental impact report as an appendix. We developed the scope for that anti-degradation evaluation in collaboration with the Department of Environmental Protection, the Environmental Protection Agency, and Coastal Zone Management in 2025 through a whole lot of meetings. And it's based on the Clean Water Act regulations, and on, there are some examples of anti-degradation evaluations for other existing outfalls. The anti-degradation evaluation is basically an evaluation to determine whether or not the outfall will degrade the water quality in the receiving water, so in Nantucket Sound. So we developed through that process a 2-year sampling program, which was conducted in Nantucket Sound over 2024 and 2025. And at the Falmouth wastewater plant, we collected more data than usual for the outfall evaluation, or additional data in addition to what we already collect. The report evaluates the potential impacts of the proposed discharge based on the Massachusetts surface water quality standards and, as I said, anti-degradation examples from other communities. The findings of this evaluation were presented to the regulatory working group in February, and the report was just submitted for regulatory review. And we are having a regulatory review meeting at the beginning of April. So additional effluent samples were collected at the wastewater treatment facility, and in Nantucket Sound, samples were collected at the 4 locations shown on this map. FOF1 is approximately the planned outfall location south of Falmouth Heights. FOF2 is very close to shore, to just get an idea if the conditions are any different closer to shore. FOF3 is cross gradient, really, from our proposed discharge location, and the idea is that it would be ultimately outside the influence of the discharge. So as we monitor that long term, we can look at it in comparison to the data at FOF1. Nantucket Sound 10, the one further south, is one that's been monitored for a long time by various entities. So there's a lot of history out there. The FOF samples are all new for our project, for the town's project. So as we've discussed before, the outfall will reduce the nitrogen load to Nantucket Sound. So this table shows the sort of minimum reduction that nitrogen reduction that will be achieved through the outfall. The first row there is listing the flow and the nitrogen concentration and nitrogen removal, the nitrogen addition from relocating the existing discharge. Right now, the town discharges to the ground at 154 Blacksmith Shop Road. When we start the outfall, we will relocate that discharge to the outfall location. So that will take the 2,941 kilograms that we're now discharging to the ground and add it to the Sound. However, we will be able to do substantial additional sewering because of the outfall, which will then reduce the amount of nitrogen that is going to Nantucket Sound from septic systems. In previous presentations, we've looked at maps that show dots for all the septic systems in the watershed to the South Coast estuaries. And when we sewer those densely developed areas, we're removing that septic nitrogen load from the coast, not only the coastal ponds, but also from the Sound, because it flows out from the coastal ponds and into Nantucket Sound. So the number that's listed there as 16,890 kilograms per year of nitrogen load removal from sewering. That's on the low end. That is the areas that have been previously shown as planned sewer areas in our Great Pond TWM Targeted Watershed Management Plan in 2022. It's solely peninsulas or parts of peninsulas south of Route 28. So this is what we know the town is ultimately going to do. There is additional sewering that will likely be done beyond that, which would increase the nitrogen removal beyond the 16,890. But we're including that as a minimum number. We are then adding back, so that 0.47 million gallons per day of flow that is coming from septic conversion to sewer now goes out to the sound at a much lower nitrogen concentration. So we're introducing 1,930 kilograms per year of nitrogen from the discharge of that new wastewater. So it's overall a net reduction of more than 12,000 kilograms of nitrogen per year. Additionally, so as part of this program, we collected data in the sound on metals, on volatile organics, on nitrogen, on many constituents, and it's all provided in our anti-degradation report. First, you look at what the water quality condition of the sound is based on that data. And so the ambient data, the ambient concentrations in Nantucket Sound met the Class SA, or the highest quality criteria, for all the parameters that we studied, with the surprising exception of arsenic. The arsenic concentration in the sound in these samples did exceed the SA criteria. Arsenic was not detected in the wastewater effluent, so it's not a concern for our discharge, and it's not a concern in the sound, but it's just a finding of the analysis. For the quantitative parameters, the proposed discharge will use less than 10% of the available assimilative capacity for all the parameters within 300 feet of the outfall. So this is sort of techno jargon, but basically with the way you look at this in the surface water quality standards is you compare what's in the effluent to what's in the sound and to the standards, the water quality standards for SA waters, and you evaluate whether your discharge is going to use 100 or more than 10% of the difference between the background and the standard. And for all of these cases, the proposed discharge would use less, and in some cases none, of the capacity between the background concentration in the sound and the regulatory standard. For three criteria, we need to do additional evaluation of those items and potentially look at modifications to the treatment facility before we begin the outfall discharge. And those are dissolved oxygen. Right now we have a groundwater discharge permit, and there is not a dissolved oxygen limit for our groundwater discharge permit because we're discharging to the Vados zone, and by the time it gets to the groundwater, anyway, there is not a dissolved oxygen concentration limit in our groundwater discharge permit. There will be one in a surface water discharge permit, so we will need to look at raising the dissolved oxygen concentration before the water reaches the outfall. Same for pH and alkalinity. We're going to have to look more at pH and alkalinity. The surface water quality standard has a very narrow range of what is technically allowed. It's a 0.2 unit change. However, most the surface water quality permits that I'm aware of allow for a much wider range than that, so we have to do more work on that front. But the pH of our discharge does vary more than 0.2 outside of the background pH in the sound. And on the last one is disinfection. We have, again, a groundwater discharge permit with our disinfection limit is 200 colony-forming units per 100 milliliters of fecal coliform. The outfall is likely to have possibly a lower standard for fecal coliform and also a standard for enterococci. I can never say that properly. So we're going to evaluate our disinfection criteria as well, and whether we will need to supplement the disinfection to make sure that we're meeting these different standards. So those are the three additional evaluations we need to do as part of the process between now and when we begin discharging is dissolved oxygen, pH alkalinity, and disinfection. And as I stated before, the outfall will significantly reduce nitrogen load to Nantucket Sound by enabling sewering. The Interbasin Transfer Act is another important aspect of the discharge evaluation. The Interbasin Transfer Act does not, it limits discharge that moves water between two basins and between two municipalities. So for our outfall, the vast majority, the overwhelming majority of our water comes from Falmouth, comes from Long Pond, Mares Pond, comes from Falmouth water sources. And the area offshore where we're discharging is within 3 miles of shore, so that is still Falmouth. So the overwhelming amount of the town water use that becomes wastewater in town does not exceed a threshold for, or does not transfer both between basins and between municipalities. However, the town gets a portion of its water from Joint Base Cape Cod. And so we have to do and that portion not only crosses town boundaries, but also crosses between the Cape Cod Basin and between the basin offshore. So we are evaluating that and presenting that to the Water Resources Commission. So the wastewater derived from water withdrawn in Falmouth is exempt from review under the Act. Water that's purchased from the Upper Cape Regional Water Supply Cooperative crosses both a municipal line and a basin line, and is subject to the Interbasin Transfer Act. Falmouth is requesting a determination of insignificance for this portion of the water that's applicable because, among other reasons, the jurisdictional transfer will be under 1 million gallons per day, which is a threshold under the Interbasin Transfer Act. And the part of the background, an important part of the background for this determination is the USGS, United States Geologic Survey, modeling work that was done to look at potential aquifer impact from the outfall discharge. So we're providing that information as background for this evaluation. In the USGS's evaluation, they evaluated impact to the aquifer from two scenarios. Scenario one was looking at sewering all properties south of Route 28 in Falmouth, which is not exactly what we're planning on doing, but it was basically a way of summarizing or approximating the sewering that would be envisioned for the next 15 years in Falmouth. Scenario two was evaluated sewering all properties in Falmouth. And again, that's a bracketing scenario. We have no intention of sewering all properties in Falmouth. The outfall won't have the capacity to handle all of properties in Falmouth. But rather than trying to get them to model one specific sewering scenario, we looked at these two bracketing scenarios. And the USGS study concluded that the simulated hydrologic response of the water table altitudes and the stream flow in both of these scenarios was relatively small compared to the fluctuation from natural recharge. And we're coordinating with the DCR to request a determination of insignificance this spring. I don't know that I need to go through the list, but we've continued meeting with a lot of regulatory agencies as needed to coordinate for the outfall work. The environmental impact report, here I did say the right deadline here. We're planning to submit the draft environmental impact report to MIPA in May of this year, and that will be issued for public review at that point. So we're only 2 months from doing that. And we expect a final MIPA determination late this year. I also won't go through this, but we've had, a lot of ongoing public communication on this project. The outfall schedule, so you've seen this before. The difference is that we've moved the dashed line a little further, so we're now at the end of the first quarter of 2026. And the important thing here is the town meeting appropriations. So we expect to request our next town meeting appropriation for design funds next April of 2027. So a year from now, we expect to be asking for design funding for the Outfall project. And the following year in April, we'd be asking for construction funds. It is possible that we would look to request the two at once, or split them up in some other way. But basically, we're targeting the April of the next two calendar years for funding appropriations. So we're in the middle of conceptual design, and we're in the middle of draft EIR preparation, to be followed by the final EIR, Environmental Impact Report, later this year, and ongoing permitting. We expect the NPDS, or surface water discharge permitting, to occur in 2027, and to be followed by design, the funding process, and construction. So we're showing still a late finish of 2032 and an early finish in 2031 for the Outfall.
Amy, that appropriation request requires 2.5 override. Is that true or false?
I expect it to be true.
Yes.
To be a debt exclusion at a minimum, a debt exclusion, not at a minimum. It'll be a debt exclusion which would require a vote at the ballot in May.
Two-thirds at town meeting and a majority at the ballot.
Yep.
Yep. So we got our work cut out for us.
Because there's a number of other capital projects the town's pursuing, right?
Yep, and this is part of the overall plan. The town finance director and everybody's well aware of these pending projects. And so that was the presentation. I'd be glad to answer any questions.
I'm going to start with you, John. Any concerns, any comments?
Just when you did the environmental notification form work, were there any indications in the feedback that make you concerned about getting final approval from MEPA, or you're pretty confident that everything's in order?
I feel good about it at this point. We've really had very strong engagement from the regulators.
I'm going to jump in. I've done a number of projects, and the Secretary's certificate that came back on our filing was one of the most positive written documents I've seen on any project I've ever worked on. It said we coordinated, we talked to the right people, we have addressed all the issues that have to be addressed, or got a good scope of work and a plan. And they even in there said that they thought that the Interbasin Transfer Act was insignificant, but we would have to go through the hoops to get it, which, I don't want to be too optimistic, but boy, it was a pretty good document.
Yeah, I mean, there is a lot of review to do and a lot of information to be gathered and a lot of evaluation to be done, but we have been in very heavy collaboration, participation with a whole lot of regulators, and I'm not hearing no. We're not hearing no at all. We're getting support as needed to move through the process.
Just to repeat Amy's comment, I guess, I feel really positive about this. I've watched and seen a lot of projects, and this was so overwhelmingly positive from the start. I mean, other than this little bit of shellfish stuff we're trying to work through, I feel really good about the way things are going.
John, this is your baby.
I think we're on a good track, and this is the first outfall that's been permitted under the Ocean Sanctuaries Act. So we're having to be the pioneers.
We're breaking new water here.
But I agree with Steve. I think all the feedback we've been getting from the regulators has been pretty positive.
Ed?
Slow but sure, we're going to get there. Keep up the good work.
Yeah.
Ken?
So you said the regulators are positive. Are they making any recommended changes of any kind, or just?
So we worked with them on the anti-degradation to do this anti-degradation scope of work, and they had a lot of feedback about the kinds of data we should collect and the frequency of data that we should collect, and they've had a lot of input on what information they want and what evaluations they want performed. I'm not saying they're all jumping up and down to have this happen. They're asking questions and making sure that this is going to be done properly and isn't going to have an impact. Have a negative impact.
The one item that sort of, early on we used a guy named Jim Churchill to do a lot of the, hydrodynamics and everything. And probably 6 or 8 months ago, we realized that the fisheries and shellfish folks rely upon modeling done by Dartmouth and the MEP folks. And so we've had to take a little bit of a step back and contract with them. But, when we look at anything that has been done by Churchill and these folks for things like New Bedford or Fairhaven, there's virtually complete agreement. But the fisheries folks or the shellfish folks were like, well, yeah, you have a guy, but, we want our guy to do it. So we caved a little bit on that one, but rather than fight for a year or 2 years, we're
getting we're having a second opinion or a second look at the modeling of the discharge dispersion in the Sound.
Yeah.
And we expect those results from Dr. Chen at UMass Dartmouth by the end of this month.
Yeah, he's contracted, he's doing it.
I haven't seen anything yet, but we expect it by the end of the month.
First off, I'm going to ask the board, can I get a quick vote to go past our stop time to close this discussion? Members of the, I'm going to go, Ron got his hand up before you, but you're next.
Thanks, Amy. That was amazing. These are huge, congratulations on these two major efforts you're doing, especially the Outfall, because it's just the way it's going, because it's not like it happens every day. I mean, it's like, this is like, as you said, a long time before anything like this happened. But the one question I have for you is that when you say we, is that the imperial we? Is that just you? Or how many people are working on this in your group?
A lot of people. So GHD is the engineer that is overseeing the work, but we have a consultant for modeling. We have a consultant for benthic evaluation. And so the person who originally did the modeling was out of WHOI, out of Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution. The gentleman that's doing the benthic analysis and the eelgrass work is also associated with WHOI, but now has his own business. And we have other contractors, as I said, UMass Dartmouth.
Got the consultant for the interbasin recently.
Right. I have there's a consultant doing the interbasin transfer analysis. So there are a lot of people with specialties in each of these fields doing work to make sure we're evaluating this properly. And we meet, so, I mean, I'm also, the DPW director is, we have a staff meeting monthly about this, so this is definitely not just me. There are a lot of people working on this.
There's a lot of contracting that you develop the contracts or the RFPs, whatever.
I'm managing overall, but there are an awful lot of people involved. Yep.
Great.
You're up.
Peter? Okay. Thank you. Peter Hargraves, Precinct 9. And I'm not picking on the wastewater efforts. I never cease to be amazed by the quantity and the quality of work that comes out of that division. I'd like to peel back a layer on something Ken intimated, and I was intrigued by Amy's response that made it sound like there's some kind of effort that I'm not aware of in terms of trying to assemble and collate and collaborate on our capital expenses over the next 5 years. And so just to put a little flesh on the bones, briefly, the schools are in for $150 million. The police station's in for $65 million. The outfall pipe, call it a nominal 80. And there's other projects that add up to $400 million in the time frame of this. In my sense, even as a member of the Finance Committee, where I'm embarrassed that I can't bring a better structured piece of information in response to my own question, I've seen all of these efforts separately working in competition to see if they can be to the polls that before the taxpayers get weary, to see if they can get their projects to the polls and get them through. We're certainly going to have a tax increase. And, you know, what I've been asking, and even to town leadership at Finance Committee meetings, is that we have a collation and collaboration, prioritization, and at least an awareness, like you're trying to bring awareness to these details to the citizens. People who are going to have to pay taxes should have an understanding ahead of time before these items get to town meeting about what's important, really important for the existential life of Falmouth, because if we're going to do it all, it's going to be an incredible new tax load. And so, but Amy said, oh, leadership's all aware of that. I haven't seen any kind of evidence that there's this, unless it's in a smoky room somewhere.
I'm gonna.
So I just want to ask.
No.
So I'd like to ask Amy to comment on when you said everyone's aware of this. Do you guys, you're the leader of a large group of this nominal collection, is there a collaboration among the owners of these various high-priced projects to try to collate them, collaborate them, and decide what goes first and when?
I'm going to jump in here. I try to keep things on topic. And the fact that you want to get a conversation going about the town-wide knowledge and cooperation on financing plans for multiple projects, I let you go, but you're kind of a little bit off topic, okay? I'm just, so I don't want to.
How we're going to pay for it is off topic?
No, it's good that we have it. And I would suggest that there is a need for an ongoing discussion someplace on the town's affordability for several big projects, yes. Amy.
There's no smoky room. What I meant was that this is on the capital plan. The $80 million that you're talking about is on the capital plan. And and the finance director and the town management and the finance committee, as you know, there was an article last November for this project for a small amount to move forward with what we're doing right now, and there was a discussion at that time about these overall projects. So I would say there is not an overall plan yet, but I think I know that the town is aware of this and those other projects, and that a solution must be found, but I did not mean that the overall plan has been decided. So it's on the capital plan. The town is aware of it. We now have 2 years before we're talking about funding the construction. So we have the time to make that plan overall.
Hildy? On the outfall.
On the outfall. So the outfall and the previous conversation, we don't only talk about the construction, we also have to talk about the constant cost of maintenance that will increase. And the town meeting members, as well as the public, should be notified, just as Peter was saying about the rest of it. We should all know about that ahead of time, because we can't start a project if we can't maintain it over the long run. And this is all extremely expensive to construct and maintain. The other thing that never comes up, and I will bring it up every time, what is the carbon footprint for all this work? We just keep building as if there's no tomorrow.
I think you're up, Matt.
Matt Hanley of Thomas Landis Road. I agree with Peter. You know, I think every taxpayer in this town wants to know the cost of you know, where their taxes are going and how they're being spent, and that that money is being spent in the best manner possible. I'm not going to get into that. You know, I've spoken about it before. Amy, can you just answer? So the next, from your presentation, if I'm hearing you right, the next section will just be the outfall pipe. We'll be just funding the outfall pipe. No phase 2 sewer won't be under this outfall. This next phase is just going to be just building the outfall.
I believe so.
Yeah, at the present time, at the present time, the way the capital plan is put together, they're only showing the number for doing the outfall.
Just outfall, okay.
You know, but
that's what I'm just asking.
I would say, Matt, though things change, I mean, we've just started, you know, dabbling in, well, how do you get a congressional appropriation? How much time does that take? You know, so money might show up from different locations. People might get to a different point. But for now, that's where we're at.
Yeah, I just wanted to know exactly if there was another phase of sewer, more capacity being brought in. So it's just the outfall, moving the additional capacity we have now.
I would say that when we get the watershed planning work done over this next year, that is going to set a new timetable and schedule for what areas get sewers or IAs and how it gets paid for.
They're in the capital plan close to one another, boom, 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 over the next 10 years. There's the outfall, and there are a couple more phases of sewering. So they're all in there, but not the same year.
Yeah, that was my question, but we really need the outfall pipe before we can take any more capacity.
Right.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes.
Good. All right. Thank you.
Okay. Go ahead, Ron.
Just quick. Thanks. Ron Zweig, Precinct 1. Since we're talking about financing, I'm just wondering, over the last 14 months, there's been a lot of impact to federal funding of things. I don't know if there's been changes, or we were expecting federal funding, or any part of this, or is it?
Does this relate to the outfall?
Yeah, as the outfall. Was there anything considered in a plan where that might have been rescinded?
I don't believe at the present time there's any federally designated funds for the outfall.
Okay. All right. Okay. I just wondered.
Yep. All right. I need to get a vote from this committee to table item 6, item 7, and item 8 because we are past our allotted time. Can I get such a motion?
So moved.
I'll second.
Okay, all those in favor? Anybody want to have a conversation about tabling the items because we're past our allotted time? Okay, no. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, and I would entertain a vote.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn, no debate allowed. Second?
Second.
Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Thank you.